Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. And welcome back, everybody. If you have a dog, or maybe you know somebody who does, you're definitely going to want to hear what we're going to talk about today, because it's all about your dog's health, the training of your canine. And we start with a woman who has a wonderful organization, multiple locations, where she teaches dogs how to swim and also hydrotherapy. All good. But there's another side of her, and she teaches you how to groom your dog's nails. So you're going to get it done somewhere. You're paying somebody else. Sometimes it's every 4 weeks, every 6 weeks. It's so important in terms of your dog's health and their balance. And I should just shut up and have her talk. I've learned so much so far. And she's back with us. Erica Etchason from Paws Adrift is back with us. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. I always enjoy these sessions.
Same. And it's funny. I was just talking to my daughter yesterday because we were clipping the cat's claws. And I said, we took a look at our dog Tanner, and I'm like, look at these claws. I said, I know a woman that teaches people how to do this with a course and using that tool I have. It's called a Dremel in the garage. Mm-hmm. And she's seen me use it to cut things and file things and stuff like that. And I never even knew that tool can be used for it. But it's so important. Tell us again why having your dog's nails trimmed is critical.
So when their nails get too long, we're actually changing how they basically interact with the earth, right? So their toes start touching instead of their actual paws or their pads. And so it changes their gait. It changes the incline of their body. So when your dog's nails are too long, their body thinks they're kind of always going uphill. And so it changes how their posture, it changes their posture, wow. Their gait. So, and then all of that leads to other issues, whether it's back issues or things like that. But you're basically they're changing how they stand, how they walk. And that's kind of over time, right? So you won't see that initially, but you may see it as they get older. But then the other thing is, the nails can get injured easier, right? You can rip a nail out. It gets caught on things. Oh. Like sometimes you'll see those injuries. And you can avoid all of that by just keeping your dog's nails maintained.
Every dog is different, I get it. But on average, how often should you be trimming their nails?
So I would say at the most 4 weeks, so every 4 weeks. And that's if you've already been maintaining your dog's nails. And this is where everybody kind of gets in trouble. So for me, I can maintain my dog's nails every 4 weeks if I have to, because they've been maintained most of her life, right? But really, you want to always do it less than that. And the problem is, if you're trying to get them down, so let's say you're like, I want to do this, I want to do the right thing, you really have to do it every week, because you have to retrain the toenails. You have to retrain that quick to recede, and you have to do that by doing it more often. So
wow.
I would say on average, I want everybody to do it every 3 weeks. But if you're retraining, I tell people you really have to do it every week.
You don't want to pay for that at a groomer.
Pay for that. And this is, I have a lot of people that ask me questions about the program, and it's a lot, right? It's a lot at the beginning. But what I tell people is, even if you don't want to do your own dog's nails, doing the training, doing handling, working on even doing it somewhat at your own home, that will help when you do take them somewhere, because then it's faster, it's going to be easier, it's less stress, it's all of those things. So even if you don't want to do it yourself, which I understand that, if you don't want to take that on,
sure,
but doing some of these things to your dog as they're growing up, in your own home for maintenance, will help at the vet's office, at the groomers, and all of those other things.
So we're going to get into the Dremel and maybe some technique and some of the different types of Dremels there are. And also, do I call them tips? What would you call them?
Yes.
Tips. Okay. So we'll get to that in a second. Training your dog, getting them comfortable with all of this. Where do we start with that?
So I would start with handling. So the basis of a lot of people, what they run into when they go to a vet's office and their dogs are really wiggly, squirrely, they run to the corner, all that stuff. If we train our dogs to accept handling and restraint, it is just so much easier. So many dogs will go to a vet's office or a groomer and they don't want to be restrained. Like they don't want their leg held. They don't want their paw held. They don't want somebody to wrap themselves around them. And so we can avoid some of that by just doing some of that at home. And it doesn't even have to be a heavy lift. Like I'm not saying you have to put a big old training plan together. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying we just need to be a little more intentional at home about how we handle our animals. So it's that, a collar hold, and a chin rest. Those are probably the three things I always try to tell people if you want to kind of start working on this at home.
A chin rest?
A chin rest, yeah.
What's that mean?
So in my boot camp, I train people how to do this my nail care boot camp. But a chin rest is basically a natural behavior our dogs like to do. They like to rest their chin on things, and we can use that to our advantage. So it can be in our hand, it can be on our leg, it can be on a chair. And what that does is it anchors our dogs to places so that they can be still. It settles them, it calms them, and you can also use it for barking. So it's a great alternate behavior to barking.
Wow. And it's funny that you're saying this. When it's bedtime, my dog comes running up and he jumps into bed. He just knows the routine. It's around that time. He's great like that schedule-wise. And I walk in and he's on the bed and he's got his chin on the bed. And so I see that there. I've often heard, too, that if you want to comfort your dog, rub their chest. Mm-hmm. Have you heard that?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, any type of slow petting, slow, long strokes will calm an animal. They like that movement. It lowers their energy. Yes, which would lower their stress.
Wow. I took my dog out for not the first time, but I don't take him out a lot and just walk him into town. And, we're just walking around, he's cute, I got to admit. So people say, well, look at it. I've gotten to the point when he starts barking at another dog in public. And sometimes it's kind of a pain in the butt because other people have their dogs out there. I didn't even know I did this, and he's used to it from back in the day. But I make a noise. I just go, and he just looks up at me like, oh, yeah, okay. I don't know if that's a training technique, but I don't know. I've been using it, and it works. Just to wake him up like, yeah, don't bark, don't bark. He doesn't bark at every dog. There's just certain ones. I always wonder what's on their mind. But those cues, is that helpful? Is that a training technique?
So interrupting our dog is a great management tool. And that's what you're doing, right? You're kind of interrupting the dog. Now, what's interesting about your example is that also sounds like a clicker. And right. There are certain tones that our dogs will respond to. And a clicker, they've learned through the years, through dolphin training, all that is a tone that animals will respond to. So we would call that a marker, really, not a cue, because normally you would click and then you would reinforce your dog somehow. You want to follow that up with reinforcement. So there's a marker. You're marking the good behavior.
Gotcha.
And then you want to reinforce the behavior.
I give him a treat.
Yes. So you're actually clicking. You're using your mouth. We call it a mouth clicker. It's a pretty advanced technique, Steve. I'm actually kind of impressed.
I just made it up. It's just and when he hears, he looks up, it's like, oh, wait a minute. Oh, treat coming? I'm like, yeah, okay, here you go, treat. And it just kind of refocuses him away. Yeah.
So it's a conditioned reinforcer. You've conditioned that marker to mean food is coming. Yeah. And that is the best way to train. Steve, you can use that for any behavior. You could do that for anything. So like when he's doing the chin rest on the bed, you could make that mouth click and then feed him. When he's in bed with you and you want to work on handling, you could stroke his leg, click that and feed it. You could squeeze his paw, click and feed that. You could do a body wrap to get him used to a whole body restraint, click and feed that. So, yeah.
Is it always followed up by a treat in this example?
So we call that a primary reinforcer. So basically food, water, sex, but we can't, it's hard for us to use, breeding with dogs, right? So you want to use a primary reinforcer. Over time, you can use a toy.
Okay.
You can do what we would call a secondary reinforcer. So anything that's not primary to the animal's existence. So you could use a toy, you could use praise, you could use touching, petting, if the dog likes that. I always tell people you kind of want to start with your primary, which is usually food, but then you can move to other things for sure.
I didn't know we were going down this road in terms of dog training. We're talking about their nails today, and fascinating. I'm going to ask you a question then, since we're here at this point. He, first thing in the morning, wants to go out. Again, he's scheduled, angle of the sun, 7:15, it's time for me to go out. I'm still laying in bed. I'm ready to go in a second, but, he comes right up in my face like, let's go. I want to go now. And I just need a minute. And I feel bad. Like he's on me. He's like, just like all in my face. Like, hey, come on, let's go, daddy. Let's go. And I'm like, all right, Tanner, we're going in a second. Put it over here. Let me just check my phone, see what the temperature is. And he's back over again. They went over there. He's back over again. I know he's trying to say, hey, I want to go out. Is there a better way to handle that? Because I feel like I'm not doing the right thing.
You can always just give them an alternate behavior. So you can ask them to down. You could ask them to settle. You could do like a settle cue. You could do a chin rest. You could go to a bed. So my favorite alternate behavior for my dog, because she's pretty attention seeking a lot as well. Go to a bed. So I'll say, go to your bed. Like when I just can't, I just need a moment, go to your bed. And I have beds all over my house, and she'll go to a bed.
In those situations, I'll say lay down. And sometimes it takes a few, tries, but then he realizes, all right, I'm not going out right now. And I'm just like, lay down, Tanner, lay down. Yeah. And he eventually does. But then again, all I have to say is, all right, let's go out. Jumps off the bed and let's go. So let's look at the Dremel tool and things that we should be mindful of if we want to embark on doing our own dog's nails.
So there are tons of products now on the market. This is definitely something that dog owners have kind of lifted up into the industry, and the industry is receiving that message. And so there are a ton of I call them starter Dremels, because a couple things. They're cheap. Like you can buy them now for $35, very easy to start.
Are these knockoffs or are they actually the Dremel brand?
These are knockoffs.
Okay.
And I wouldn't really call them knockoffs. I would call them just other companies have created other companion products, right? Like it's really
I could buy Q-tips or I could buy cotton swabs. I'm buying the same thing.
Yeah. So this one is a Casafee, but it really doesn't matter. There's Lucky Dog, there's Casafee, there's all kinds. It has a diamond bit, which is my preferred bit whenever you're going to do your dog's nails, not sandpaper. All right. So a lot of people used to use sandpaper, and that's what comes with your Dremel tool. It's going to be a sandpaper bit.
Yep.
The problem is that's going to get hot, and a sandpaper bit, mostly it's going to get hot. Right. So we want to do a diamond bit so that it doesn't get hot, so we don't burn our dog. Okay. Our dog's nails. Anything on a cheap product, this is going to be a low quality bit. It's basically, it's going to get you started, but it's not going to be, it's going to take you a little longer. It's not going to go as fast. It's the whole thing. But these usually can't go too fast. So they're really made for dogs' nails, right? Because you really don't want to just turn a Dremel on and go at any speed, right? There's a certain speed you want to work up to. So these tools control that. They're not going to, you're not going to have a speed on this that you're going to hurt your dog. So that's why I call these starter tools. They're budget friendly and can't really hurt your dog.
And the legit Dremel tools, oh my gosh, when you crank those up,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know what the RPMs are, but I'm like, all right, Steve, did you make sure you and I'm not talking doing dogs' nails. I've never done that, but just using the Dremel tool for cutting, shaping, sanding, and all of that. I'm thinking, I hope I put that bit in really tight, because if it gets at this RPM, it's a projectile.
Yeah. So if people want to get into the details here, so like I would start out training my dog at maybe 7,000 or 10,000 RPM. Okay. But when I'm going to be an expert and I'm using a more powerful tool, then 15,000 is kind of the sweet spot. And if you're really good, you can probably get up to 20,000. You would never want to go above 20,000 RPM. And there are some Dremels, like my Dremel goes up to 28,000. I would never use that. So I usually do 15,000 RPM.
I'm seeing this in a different light. Granted, if you already own a Dremel, okay, great. But those, call them the starters. It seems like it makes more sense, because I got to say, on a standard Dremel, the difference between 7,000 and 28,000, it's this. You could touch that by accident, and there it goes.
Yes. So that's it's nice about these tools that are really more for the pet industry, I would
Is
say.
That okay? We didn't establish that. So what you're holding there is made for this purpose? Interesting.
Yes.
I didn't know that. So when I said knockoff, I thought it was a an alternative brand of Dremel, and essentially it is, but this is marketed for this particular use.
Yeah, and even Dremel themselves, Dremel brand, has pet-specific Dremels. So there's an entire industry out there. There's an entire industry out there just for pet Dremels, because most groomers, professional handlers, that's all they use Dremels. There's an entire industry that uses Dremels on dogs.
Wow.
So, and they cater to that. Yep.
And I see that one's rechargeable.
Yeah. So you just plug it in. Very easy. You don't need expensive batteries or anything like that. So, yep.
Yeah. And my Dremel, I mean, it's older. It's not rechargeable, so the cord gets in the way. And that's when you're working with it. Now try, your dog's all over. Now you get the cord, and you want to be careful the way you do what you're doing.
Yeah. So when I started, I actually used a corded Dremel, Steve, just like you had, because I had one, right? So I started out with a corded Dremel on a low RPM. Again, I had people that kind of told me how to do it. And to have the cord is such a nightmare.
Oh, yeah.
So we want to just take them wherever we want to do it, whether it's on the couch, on the bed, in the kitchen. Like we want to be able to take it wherever we want to do our dog's nails, on vacation, whatever you do. So, and then what's nice about these, a lot of them have this cap, and there's a little hole. So if you're really nervous, you can actually just try to put the nail in this hole and just to do the tip. And that may be a good way for people to start. I train all my people. We like to use the whole head, because really, I want you to do the whole nail. I want you to do the top. I want you to do the sides. I want you to do the bottom. But that may be a lot at the beginning, so you can put this little cap on and just start with the tip.
It's almost like a guard.
Mm-hmm. It is, yeah.
Wow. So let's talk about the tips. You said before we got on here, the price of the diamond tip. Mm-hmm. And go. So for people that I've got, people come in my program, we go through it, and then by the end, they're ready. They're ready to do the 15,000 RPM. They want a better tool. They've got big dogs, thick nails, and they want to really go at it. And I say to them, it's kind of they're ready for a more expensive tool. So this is called a diamond bit, and this is a high quality diamond bit, and this is a $150 tip. Now, you will have this tip for your lifetime. If you only have one dog at a time, you will never have to replace this tip. I've probably had this tip for, I don't know, almost 10 years probably. Wow.
Hair doesn't get, so I have a long hair dog. I have a Newfoundland. She's got beautiful furnishings, gorgeous, right? But her hair used to get caught in this. With the diamond bit, it's not going to pull the hair. It stops. So you never are yanking on your dog's hair. It never heats up. And so that's really the big thing, is that this never gets hot on your dog's nail. So you can't really hurt your dog with this.
Wow.
But it's an investment. And so I don't like to start people out like that, because I'm okay, now you got to go buy a $150 tool, because you don't. You first really need to learn how to use it before you even get to needing this bit. So
I got to tell you, when you first said before we got on here that diamond tip was $150, I was like, whoa. But then I thought about it. When I take my dog to the groomer and he's like 20 something pounds, like 25, I'm dropping $80 easy. And now granted, they're grooming him. Yes. But they're also doing his nails. And that's in 2 months, I've already paid for that tip. And not that I'm going to groom my dog, but even just to have the peace of mind that the nails are done and done right. You know, some groomers, they just get them in, get them out. It's worth it. It's worth the investment.
Yeah.
I really feel.
And this is, so the feedback I'll get from people a lot of times is they just took their dog to the vet or the groomer. Because I'll have to say to some of my clients I swim, I'm like, really, the dogs need to get their nails done, because I have filters, I have things on the floor, and their nails will get caught. So I'm like, I really need you to go get your dog's nails done. And they'll come back and they're like, well, Erica, they barely did anything. Like there's no change. And the reason there's no change is because the quick is so long, you can't really do much. If you're clipping, there's not much you can do. If you're dremeling, you can take more off safely. So that's the advantage. So if you have somebody that's only clipping your dog's nails, there's less they can do, because it's more dangerous. You can make them bleed easier. With the Dremel, you can actually start taking layers of the nail off to kind of fast track getting that blood supply back, getting that quick to be shorter.
Love it. Love it. And, many dogs' nails are dark. My cats, they're clear, so you can see.
Yeah, see it.
Yeah. Love your tips. We're out of time. I just keep going. I wish I brought my Dremel. Super cool. And best of all, you have an online course essentially for this, right?
Yeah, so I have a really economical boot camp that anybody can join anytime. It's 5 emails. It's just a week's worth of information, so it doesn't overwhelm you. And I do all the foundations. I get you started on your own. And one of the things I talk about is chin rest. So I talk about chin rest. I talk about setting up a special place so that your dog runs into that place instead of is scared for you to handle them. I talk about Zen Bowl, which is basically a food reinforcement strategy so that your dogs know reinforcement's coming, so that they're more apt to have you do hard things. So I talk about all those things to get everybody started on their journey.
I see this in a whole different light. Your course, all great. You learn a lot, but you also learn dog training tips at the same time. So fantastic. How do we find it?
ForPawsAdrift.com. And there's actually I call it Dremel Like a Boss. That's my program. So there's actually a page for DLAB. But it's all on ForPawsAdrift.com, and you can find it anywhere on that site.
Fantastic talking with you today, Erica. Learned a lot. Final word here.
Wait, what?
I didn't know that was that was a thing. I learned that as well. Like, super cool.
I know. Look, Steve, I don't even mouth click. I mean, you're like more advanced than me at this point. I don't even mouth click. I'm like, he mouth clicks. Oh my God.
Truth be told, I think I used to do that to my kids when they were little too. But anyway, wonderful having you here, and learned so much. ForPawsAdrift.com is the website, and somewhere we'll connect again. I love it. Love talking with you.
Well, thank you so much. It was great. It was really great talking to you.
Same here. We'll be right back. Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes?
How could he do this to you? And for Sheila, she has split ends.
B, console her.
Oh, sweetie, this is going to happen a lot. 4, maybe 5 more times before you get married.
C, take charge.
Got to get this all straightened out. Give a little talking to, man-to-man, mano a mano. Hey, Steve. It's now a good time? No? Okay, no problem. Bye.
Or D, help her find a new boyfriend.
I know a great place to meet boys. The internet. Nice, single boys. Never mind. How about some ice cream?
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.